it's pretty intimidating taking on one of those roles. You must ask Jacob Elordi how he feels about that. Maybe he goes, no, I've never thought of myself as attractive.
This episode of Vulture's Roll Call is brought to you by Great Britain.
You've made, at this point, 3 films with Joe Wright, and this was his first film. Did you know him at all before filming Pride Prejudice?
I don't think I did. Yeah, no, I didn't. And I think for him it was a glory period, really. Mm. Joe is the sort of filmmaker who was feeling his kind of power for the first time. Film directors can have strange careers because they're in such a powerful position, and when creatively, when it comes together, they can feel godlike, I think. That's what happened for him at that moment, that summer. Joe it was much more personal, much more instinctive as a process for him, and I think it continues to be, probably. This romantic tale, Young Love, was suited him at that moment, and he kind of engendered that feeling on the set. So it was very playful and giddy and romantic summer. He did a sort of method himself. And so he was kind of encouraging. He was sort of like a naughty kind of Cupid figure, really, on it, trying to sort of get people to have crushes on each other, which they did.
Out in the countryside.
Yeah, in these beautiful locations.
Yeah. In the sort of bucolic expanse.
It was heady, yeah. Yeah, put it like that.
Mr. Collins' arrival and sort of first arriving at the Bennett.
Mr. Collins at your service.
And sort of the scene of all of the sisters and Brenda Blethyn and Donald Sutherland. And sort of bringing his particular energy of sort of uprightness and sternness.
For she has all the superior graces of elevated rank.
And coming to dinner, which is, of course, when you also are complimenting the boiled potatoes and sort of have all these prepared remarks. What was it like doing that scene, filming that arrival?
I remember struggling with the fact that I was playing the undateable character and thinking, am I that unattractive? Why am I cast as this person? Joe said, I think you ought to have a mullet. And then I thought, maybe that's good. Maybe that's because I am actually intrinsically attractive. And so he must be making me less attractive with the mullet. And so I must lean into all the strangeness. I remember enjoying the very first moment coming through the door and thinking about how to appear under the hat and thinking that hat brim was useful and that I could sort of reveal myself I could give myself a wipe with the brim of the hat, which was a sort of technical trick. But there's a sort of depressing analysis of that story, which is men are judged by the size of their house, you know, and he doesn't have a house either. So, you know, the kind of patriarchy is actually, in a way, is sort of revolting. The patriarchy doesn't just bear down on women, it bears down on men as well. But but also he's an arse-licking creep as well. So I enjoyed being an arse-licking creep. That's fun to do. Yeah, Collins he's miscast, isn't he, in his own life?
I am not the sort of female to torment a respectable man. Please understand me, I cannot accept you.
I remember I was unprepared because aren't the girls all giggling around the door? Yeah, I remember not realising that they were going to be there. And I found it very humiliating, which was probably brilliant for the scene. The Flower was physical comedy, and the bowing and scraping around Catherine de Bourgh was kind of, you know, clowning, really.
Yeah.
And Joe was, you know, modulating it brilliantly and knowing how much of it to use and not to. And then the stuff with Matthew and the dance, the kind of bad dancing.
To be sure, dancing is of little consequence to me, but it does.
The stiff, awkward thing, all of that felt like kind of physical comedy to me, which I was loving doing.
If I may be so bold, to remain close to you throughout the evening.
I remember Donald Sutherland, God rest his soul, being very competitive, being surprisingly competitive for someone who's such a great actor and seemingly wouldn't have anything to prove.
Competitive in what way?
He did a classic thing, which no one had ever done before, I knew about. It was kind of, the attention was on Mr. Collins, or certainly in the take. And he said, would you throw me a look at the end? Would you throw me a look? It's to cut to him.
Yeah.
He was kind of intimidating me into doing it.
After dinner, I thought I might read to you all for an hour or two.
And I remember thinking, I know what you're doing. And that's a trick to edit, to try and sway the edit in your favour because you don't have any lines at that point. And I'm not going to do that, Donald Sutherland. And also just back off, why don't you just leave me alone and let me play the part the way I want to play it. And I remember thinking, I'm not going to throw you a look. And then I threw him a look because he seeded it. And then I just did it and thought, oh, I fucking did it.
Are you familiar with Fordyce's sermons, Miss Bennet?
Very, very much enjoyed arse-licking Judi Dench.
Mr. Berg.
She's very inclusive. She's a Quaker and she doesn't play status particularly. She's a very democratic sort of person. So actually, in a way, she's actually sort of counterintuitive casting. I remember Matthew Macfadyen and I remember having the idea to get nearly bumped by his elbow. That was fun.
Mr. Darcy. Mr. Darcy.
Suggesting it to him and him being game and doing it and thinking, oh, that works really well. I think he, of all people, found the burden of taking on that role with the shadow of Colin Firth. Whether you preferred this version or not, that sort of iconic Colin Firth coming out of the thing with a wet shirt, the wet T-shirt moment is hard to... And I think he was thinking this is a bit of a poison chalice. But of course he's brilliant. He's a brilliant actor. I mean, I shouldn't really speak for him, but he was burdened by it. Matthew doesn't go, hey, I'm Mr. Sexy, He doesn't, that's not how he thinks of himself. I also remember thinking, when it was suggested as a prospect, Pride and Prejudice, they need another one of those? I mean, because it was not long after Colin Firth, Jennifer Ely one, which was, within really only a few years before. I remember thinking, why do they need to make another one of those? Not understanding the nature of there's a new generation of reader, there's a new generation of teenager that will get caught up in that story probably every 10 years. So I remember kind of going, who needs another Pride and Prejudice? And then being completely, flabbergasted by how excited everyone was at the time.
Indeed.
And then latterly, I was in somebody's house and having lunch one Sunday afternoon a couple of years ago in New York. Somebody went, oh, Tom, do you know Jennifer? And I said, no, I don't know Jennifer. And hello, how'd you do? And she went, oh, I know you, because of those exemplary boiled potatoes or whatever the line is. What is the line?
What a superbly featured room and what excellent boiled potatoes. Many years since I've had such an exemplary vegetable.
Anyway, she quoted the line. As she quoted it, I thought, my goodness, that's Jennifer Lawrence. I thought, that's exciting. And then someone said, no, it's on a T-shirt and it's a meme. So I don't know how that's happened.